Hi there and welcome. Today I am working on watercolor paper and I'm starting with a dot kind of right in the middle of the page. Then I'm going to make it kind of go up and to the sides, kind of like a wide letter V. I'm doing it at about 3 fingers away from the edge of the side of the paper. And I'm sorry it's so light. I am trying to draw lightly in case I do need to erase. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side, and it's okay if your V's aren't perfectly even. Then I'm going to go ahead and put a dot at the top of my paper, also about 3 fingers away from the edge. And I'm going to start at the top dot and kind of add a curved line, kind of like the letter C, and connect it down to my V. I'm going to do the opposite on the other side, so curve it down towards the outside and then bring it down to connect to my V. This is the outside of the dove shape. Next, I'm going to make a straight horizontal line on the very top of my paper. My horizontal line is a little bit inside of my C's. Next, I'm going to make kind of a U shape to connect them. Sometimes it helps to just kind of take your pencil back and forth first before actually connecting them. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, make kind of a wide U shape. And we have our dove, a symbol of the Holy Spirit. Next, I want to add the flames underneath, and I want to do that to kind of remind us of the tongues of fire that were over the disciples' heads on Pentecost. So I'm going to start again with dots, and I'm just going to make 3, one at the bottom of my paper and 2 on the sides. Those are going to be the bottom of the flames. I'm also going to do a dot at the top, so it's kind of like a diamond here. And on the bottom is where I'm going to start, and I'm going to make kind of a curved line that comes up to that top diamond point. And then I'm going to do another curved line that's going to go close, but not quite to the diamond point. So it's going to be a little bit open. Then I'm going to start on the side of the diamond and make a curved line that goes up. And I'll do the same thing on the other side, a curved line that goes up. And then I will start at the bottom again and make a curved line that goes up, but not quite to the same spot. And again, not quite to the same spot. Now that I have my 3 overall shapes, I want to make them look like flames. So I'm going to kind of make a point and then make a U shape and then come back and make another point. And you can see I can kind of play around with how tall they are, but I do want them to be nice and point so they look like kind of dancing flames here at the top. A U and then go up to a V or a point on the top. Make a U and then connect to the other one, just like that. I also want to make kind of the center part of the flames by making another kind of pointed shape that has curves on the side. I'm just going to do a little one on either side. And then I could actually be done like this. This could be the end of my picture, and I could go ahead and start adding a marker outline and color. But I thought it might be nice to add maybe some wavy lines on the side just to give a little bit more interest to my picture. So I'm going to start at the bottom and kind of curve around the flames. It's okay if you go off the side of your paper. And then I'm going to curve up and around the dove. So it's just kind of one big wavy line. I'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'll curve around and then down, and I'll go all the way off the bottom of my paper. And then because I still have some corners open, I think I'm just going to add a couple extra curve lines kind of along the edges on the outside of my picture, just to give it a little bit of interest. And you can see, looking at my final picture, that's kind of nice to add some extra values and colors in those sections. All right, I'm liking how this looks. Now I'm going to go ahead and go over it with some Sharpie so that my lines are a little bit more bold. And I'm using Sharpie because it's permanent, and that way when I paint, it won't bleed or anything. So make sure you use a permanent marker if you do decide to outline. You could also use oil pastel or black crayon would work too. I'm going to go ahead and just very carefully trace over all of the lines that I made before so I have a nice strong outline of my dove, my 3 flames, and the nice curved shapes that I have kind of along the outside of my paper. This will just make my drawing a little bit more clear and it will make it ready for me to paint. So I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead so that I can get to the painting part. Once I have done all of my Sharpie, then I am all set to paint. All right, I am using watercolor paint today, and I'm going to go ahead and begin with the yellow on my flames. So I'm starting out with my yellow, and I'm just going to try to be very careful to stay inside of the light part of my flames. If you want to, you can even add like a tiny bit of orange to the outside of your yellow just to add a little bit of shading. Or if you are like me and you have 2 different yellows in your watercolor set, you could do the light yellow and then the darker yellow along the outside just to add a hint of shading to the outside of the flames. Now remember with watercolor that you want to do areas that don't touch each other. So I'm not going to do those oranges in the center yet because I don't want them to bleed into the yellows. So instead I'm going to work on my yellow flames and then I will come back and do the oranges later once the yellow is dry so that they won't bleed together and mix inside of the flames. Now I'm using my dark yellow though because I do want it to mix with my light yellow. So you have to kind of decide how you want those to work together. All right, the next thing I want to do is one of the outside kind of wavy lines. And I decided that I wanted to kind of keep this in nice warm colors, right? Using the warm colors on the color scale. So the warm colors, of course, are red, yellow, and orange. And so if I kind of mix and match using those 3, I'll have a nice warm color palette. And Pentecost colors, because of the flames and because of the celebration, it is usually red. And so I thought yellow because of the and orange because of the fire would work well for this painting. So I am doing orange along the outside here because I want to do red in the middle. I feel like that would be the best contrast for the flames. So I'm adding my orange wavy lines here on the outside, filling those with watercolor because they don't touch any other parts of my painting. Then I can go ahead and put a little bit of a lighter color like a lighter yellow or orange along the outside. And it doesn't really matter to me if these 2 blend a little bit. I can always kind of make them a little bit more clear later. So I'm okay if there's a little bit of blending from orange to yellow along the outside edge. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and do the inside of my flames now. Hopefully it's a little bit more dry so I don't have to worry about the orange bleeding into the yellow. And I'm just adding a little bit of orange, and you could even do a hint of red in the middle too. Usually flames can be a little darker on the inside, so I like to add just that little bit of dark, little tongues of fire that were floating on Pentecost. All right, I'm liking this. I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, and then now I can come in and do the red. So I did put it aside for a minute and I let the orange dry, and now I'm going to be very careful and paint the red on all of the other parts. So I'm going to add it in between and around the bird and the tongues of fire. Now I am using the same brush for all of mine. It's a round brush, so it does get to kind of a nice point so I can get into some of those smaller areas. But if you needed to switch to a different brush to get some of those smaller areas in, I recommend doing that. It also helps at times to move your paper so you can turn it upside down or sideways so that you're not putting your hand in wet paint. So I'm just going to move my red color all throughout my painting. I'm trying to make sure that I go right up to the edges and I don't leave any of that white paper showing through so that my entire picture is done. All right, there you have my finished masterpiece. I even added a couple extra little dark areas to give it a little bit more definition on the sides. And now we've got a nice Pentecost painting all ready to hang up for the Pentecost season. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and please head on over to Elke Art for more art tutorials coming your way. Thanks for watching.